Welcome to the February 23rd staff training webinar. My name is Ryan Creesh. I am the Reservation Director, and today our first topic of agenda is open positions at camp. So I need everyone's help to help get the word out that there are still some open positions that we have on the staff. A lot of them reside around the service areas. So if you know another scout in your troop that maybe kind of on the fence, maybe he's going to go work at McDonald's, but would much rather have a better experience this summer, get them online, get them to apply, and let's get some more folks on staff. We're looking for, if anybody knows any over 21-year-old lifeguards that might be interested in an aquatics director position. We're looking for an aquatics director. We're looking for a couple people out at High Adventure, which is coping climbing. We're looking for another scoutmaster or an adult person that's interested in the Eagle Quest, running the Eagle Quest area, as long as a couple older, over 18 folks that might be interested in the Eagle Quest position. Looking for a rifle range director for the shooting sports. And a number of others. But the big area that I'm really kind of concerned about right now that I could use your guys' help with is there are very few people that are interested or have applied for working in the dining hall. And I know that doesn't sound like a very fun position, but I'll tell you what, I did it for a couple years and I loved it. As working in the kitchen, I had the most time off. I had we had to work hard, but once we got the work done, and we were able to go out and have some fun. So keep that in mind. On the Betty Ford Adventure Cup side, we're looking for a couple area directors, some program staff. We're kind of really short on some super den chiefs. So if you know anybody that's really likes singing songs and having fun and leading some folks around, we need some areas there. All right. So in a second here, I'm going to unmute you, and on your little controller thing there somewhere, there's a way for you to respond yes, no, raise hand, lower hand, go slower, go faster. I don't know where those controls are. I found them in the Manage Participants section. But there's also a chat box. So in the chat box, if you guys could, just real quick, put in the chat box if you have in your possession a copy of the Building Legendary Camp Service Manual.
You need to fucking chill, bro.
Excellent. So most of you do. That's wonderful. So in that Legendary Service Manual, there is a mission statement. And I'd like you to pull that out and get that ready because I'd like us to read this together. I'm going to unmute everyone, and let's go ahead and read together the mission statement. On the count of three. 1, 2, 3.
We, Gerber, Scout Reservation staff, are providing our customers and guests with a legendary Scout camp experience while participating in our life-enhancing programs. Committed to providing facilities, programs, sports leadership that consistently exceed the expectations of our customers and guests. Our Michigan Scout camps will be safe havens for experiencing the best of the adventures and values of the Boy Scouts of America.
Experiencing the best adventures and values of the Boy Scouts of America. Outstanding. that was phenomenal. I'm going to mute everybody again. And so with that, we have a guest speaker. He's the individual who had actually authored that mission statement, Mr. Michael D. Sogrove.
Hi, everybody. I am coming to you from the old-fashioned method, so you won't see my face, but you'll hear my voice, hopefully. Ryan, please feel free to modulate it however you need to, but thanks, everybody, for reading the Building Legendary Camp Service mission statement. Every camp in the state has this mission statement with their own camp name included into it, and hopefully big banners will be up in their dining halls or in other such locations to help us remember that we're all about legendary camp service. And I wrote this mission statement as a way to say to for our camp staffs to say to our customers, and that's our campers, our youth campers, and our adult campers, or our scouts and our adults, that we're here for a purpose. That we're not just we could have chose other lives this summer. We could have done other things. We could have made made other choices. But instead, we've chosen to be part of something important, and that's a summer camp staff for the Boy Scouts. And I know that was of great importance to me when I was a young man serving on those staff. In fact, earlier tonight, I was actually online with a couple of old camp staff guys from 50 years ago, talking about our adventures on the camp staff and how they still resonate with us to this day. I'm going to go through the booklet, but in a little bit different format than I did last year. I'm going to kind of do an executive summary of it. So I appreciate that you have your book. I'm going to bring you to a couple, 2 or 3 pages later on in my conversation. But for now, I'm going to go through a little executive summary, a little Reader's Digest that Aaron Gatch was kind enough to create for me and allow me to use. So Ryan, if we're ready, I'll take off.
We're ready. I have MCC Summer Camp slide.
Wonderful. Then we've done the legend and our legendary mission statement. I appreciate that. So here we go with summer camps. So I'm going to talk about these key elements that are located on here, and it really is, in my opinion, the dominoes or the core values or the elementary things that allow us to succeed in any camp in America. I asked the question of a national camp school one time of a couple of hundred people in the room who were doing aquatics and cope courses and climbing towers and shooting sports areas and management and leadership, et cetera, et cetera. I asked them, who is the greatest single person in delivering a quality summer camp experience? And they all agreed it was the camp staff. They all agreed that the scouts and the adults were the receivers of this service that we give. But it's important that we remember how we give this service and the manner in which that we do it. My point of the story to them and my point of the story will be to you today is that I could take any parking lot, any campground, any building, and if you give me the right staff with the right attitude, with the right family energy, we can accomplish great scouting. And I've been in camps with swimming pools and without swimming pools, and with lakes and without lakes, and with shooting sports and without shooting sports, and with dining halls and without dining halls. And all those are simply elements that add to the overall success. But give me a great camp staff that is motivated as a family to do great things, and we can accomplish anything. And these core elements will tie into that. First and foremost, as it relates to camp staff, you and I have to demonstrate by our actions in camp and our actions out of camp that we understand and live by the Scout Oath and the Scout Law. We've got to be able to demonstrate, not just talk about, but physically demonstrate that we are scout and leader customer focused. We're here to deliver a service of the Boy Scouts of America. And lastly, that we understand how to respect, maintain, and improve our facilities, and I would add to that our program and our services. are 5 core areas that are quality, family-like camp staff, an innovative, creative program, food that meets their needs and keeps them happy, keeps them strong, facilities that are comfortable, safe, and enjoyable, and lastly, leader engagement that allows them to constantly be in communications and understanding what's happening and what's not happening. Somebody's listening, somebody's understanding, somebody's acting, somebody's educating at all times. All right, let's go to the next page, page 3. Staff, as you can see, I'm going to focus a little bit on this, is all about you folks, because in my opinion, this is the part that you have the biggest say-so in, both personally and collectively. Personally, you have a say-so by your own actions. Are you going to wear your uniform properly? Are you going to be in your area on time and ready to go? In the midst of rough, cold days that are wet and miserable, can you be on top and still give a strong example? Can you be creative in your mind and your thinking? Can you work well with your fellow staff members and deliver a quality program? Can you recruit? Can you help bring other people on board so that together you're building that family that is so terribly important to a quality camp staff? So all of these are listing then attributes that lead toward creating the environment for a quality camp staff. And that includes having a common uniform, which is why we have a camp staff shirt that we wear, our Class B's, as it's sometimes called. It shouldn't be, but it sometimes is. We wear our scout uniforms when it's appropriate. We go through these trainings like the monthly webinars that Ryan is putting on, plus the meetings that are probably going to start sometime in March or April that will be up for weekends up at camp that your camp directors will call, plus the 10-day camp staff training for the senior staff and the 7-day training for the rest of the camp staff this summer in June. All of those work together to keep you trained and empowered and looking forward. The positive attitude, as I always tell guys, is what you've got to bring to the table. That can-do spirit, that can-do energy that says, I'm here to serve, I'm here to make a difference, I'm here to make sure that things happen. Now, fellowship building and family building are one and the same to me. Everything that we're doing and that Ryan's doing, and that the reason I wrote this booklet is to help people understand that we don't do it alone. When I said I could take any parking lot and build an unbelievable camp program, I can't do it by myself. I can't do it with 2 people or 3 people. I've got to have that family of camp staff. And you're part of that family of camp staff that at our camp anyway, at Gerber Scout Reservation and at Betty Ford Adventureland are going to make the real difference in what we do and what people talk about and how we're evaluated. So it's important that you're now taking actions to build that fellowship and that family. I insist that we do recognitions of camp staff every week, excuse me, at the opening of every session, during the summer with the midsummer celebration, with quality opening and closing banquets. We do everything in our power to make sure that the camp staff understand that you're important and what's expected of you is important. At the same time of doing this every session, and at the middle and the beginning and the end, I also want us doing and finding ways to celebrate camp staff that are really on target, that are literally leading the way for doing the best possible job. I want to reward camp staff that are not only on time, on target, with the right energy, but they're also constantly saying, I think I know a way we can do this better. They're always innovating. They're always saying, what about this? What about that? And I find, quite honestly, that it starts now. It starts with an area director who says, here's what I want to do for the summer to make my area bigger, better, special, more attractive. Every once in a while, I'm going to stop and tell a story or two because I'm old and have a gray beard. And the story I remember is when I was a handicraft director, my first summer on camp staff in 1972. And yes, I realize that's long before most of you were born. But in 1972, I was a handicraft director. I knew some 800 kids were going to be going through my area, and we were teaching metal craft and leather work and wood carving and all those things and making baskets and all that sort of stuff. So quite honestly, can get really, really boring really, really fast. And so I needed something different. I needed something creative. And so we started the picnic table bench pressing contest in my program area. And for the 2 summers that I ran that before I became a program director on the camp, on the reservation, that's what we did. And we created literally an adventure around the ability of bench pressing picnic tables and who could bench press the most. Now, nobody came to scout camp thinking they were going to be doing something as stupid as bench pressing. Nobody had any idea that that could be done. But because I wanted something creative and different and fun and attractive to do in the program area, it got to the point that literally kids wanted to be in our program area more than they wanted to be in anybody else's program area. Probably why I got to be a program director so quickly in my young career. You have to be innovative, and it starts now. Next, and I think this ought to be a mantra that we literally say every morning at the flagpole, and that is customer first, always be on time, always do as expected of us. Everything we got to do is reminding us that we're here for those who paid their dollars to be on our beautiful campground called Gerber Scout Reservation and Betty Ford Adventureland. Next, you'll see that at all of your gatherings, there will be testimonials. And in a way, in my stories tonight, I'll be interweaving my testimonial into what we're talking about. Solid leadership examples. No doubt in my mind that your camp directors and program directors, business managers, Ryan, the other people will be literally setting the tone, setting the example. But leadership also means you as well. I don't care if you're a CIT or a returning person or a new person or a director, it doesn't matter. You're in the business of setting a scouting leadership example. On the next slide, talks about the things I think are important, and these are just what I call in-camp tidbits. There's got to be a strong commissioner corps, and that's the role of camp directors to make sure that happens. There's got to be a strong CIT program so that we're constantly growing and building the future camp staff. One of the things I prided myself with when we first got to Grand Rapids was the ability to create a strong CIT program that really caused a lot of guys to get on our staff. One of the reasons we had 150 size camp staff serving Gerber and Betty Ford. I'm a big fan of the praise tokens and the things, and Ryan and the camp directors will take all of that. I'm a big fan of bringing the volunteers into the circle. I'm going to say this recruiting and hiring, come back to in just a minute. I'm a big fan that everybody that's on this phone, everybody that's yet to be hired, everybody that's going to be on that team, we are all cheerleaders. We are all here to literally make our camp the greatest camp possible, to make our program area the greatest possible, to make our delivery the greatest possible, but also to make the Boy Scouts of America as great as possible. I got to tell you, I don't need to read any more bad news about the Boy Scouts. We are doing it, for my life in the 53 years that I've been in scouting, I've had nothing but great fun in it and great adventures. And in my scout troops and in 99% of the scout troops I knew, there were kids enjoying their scouting program and having fun, just like many of you. And we've got to keep singing that praise and talking about that and feeling good. If you own something, you make it happen. If it's yours, you believe in it. If it's not the camp's cabin, but my cabin, you take care of it better. If it's my equipment, then you take care of it better. If it's my campfire or our campfire, you take care of it better, make sure it's better, et cetera, et cetera. Leadership and area director meetings, that's for your camp directors and things like that. Now let me go back to this recruiting and hiring before I leave. Quality and innovative and engaged camp staff. All of us are responsible for the camp staff hiring and recruiting and training. I don't care if you're a CIT, you know other friends who could be in scouting. If you're a person who's on a 16, 17-year-old, you know people who you could bring with you. who either used to be on the camp staff, are in scouting, not in scouting, people that you can bring in that ought to be joining you and sharing the magic of what this program is all about. I have been to many an Eagle Scout Court of Honor in my 53 years, in which a young man literally got his start in scouting as a CIT on the camp staff. That he was invited literally off the street into scouting and learned to be a part of the scouting game because of his involvement as a member of the camp staff. So the rule is wide open territory in looking for people to recruit and bring on our team. All of us ought to be constantly emailing names to our camp directors and to Ryan for people to consider and think about. That includes maybe adult leaders in our troop that we think might be available and willing to help us, or even members of our family. Camp staff. It is the largest, most important, most critical key to being success. Those of you that are leaders, as area directors or program directors or business managers or camp directors, or Ryan in your role as the reservation director, I charge that each of you be the kind that don't accept second best, that don't accept mediocrity, that don't accept doing it to just get by, but literally wake up every day saying, how can we do this better? When I was a camp director in 1982 and we were building a camp that was on the verge of dying, literally the board was going to close the camp forever and selling the camp. And we made it go from 4 weeks of camp and 400 Boy Scouts in 1982 to serving over 3,000 Boy Scouts by 1986. The reason we did that was that, well, one of the reasons, there were many, but one of the reasons was that literally every morning at the morning flagpole, I would gather the staff for a staff huddle around me, and I would say, do today better than you did yesterday. Do something great. Make a child happy. Help an adult leader to be better. Do something different. Be customer oriented. And I got to tell you, that got to just be a way of life for those staff members who, to this day, by the way, many of them are still in the Boy Scouts of America here 40 plus years later, doing their thing from scouting. A quality, innovative, engaged staff delivers on +1, or as I call it, legendary customer service program, facilities, and engagement. All right, slide 4. An innovative program. Again, this follows right after the camp staff. I cannot have an innovative program. I cannot have the most exciting program in the world. I can't have things that are magical and adventuresome and bring smiles to people's faces if I don't have a great camp staff. At the same time, if a great camp staff haven't thought their way through and created and planned to have quality programs, we can't be successful. And I saw every waking moment in camp when I was a camp director and hiring camp directors and leading camp directors or as a scout executive or whatever. I saw that we had to be constantly asking ourselves how we can do it better, how we can plan more and be creative on it. And so these are my thoughts here. Everything is programmed, in my opinion. I don't care if it's working in the dining hall. You know, I used to tell guys, if the food's not quite ready to serve, then run a dining hall program. Come up with a theme for the week or for the session and run that theme. I just had Matt Adams, who is our camp director at Gerber Scout Reservation back in our seriously sad days back in 1999 to 2000 when we were struggling to get back over 1,000 people camping at the camp. And he became the first camp director that really helped me get things moving in the right direction. And he was just here visiting, and we got to talking about the themed programs that he and the camp director ran for the week. And they had this country guy, I can't remember the name, Ryan, you may remember the name of him, but these 2 country bumpkins that were in every dining hall program and every campfire program, and the whole camp rallied around them. When I was a camp director in Denver and trying to change that program from 400 campers to 3,000 campers, I created a banning root beer in camp, and we had an entire program about banning root beer in camp. That literally became the theme through the summer that broke off into affecting other programs and how we did them. I don't care if you're on the Betty Ford side or the Gerber side, the Scout Camp side, you need a theme for the summer that is led by the area directors and the program director, but is created by the camp staff together to figure out how you can branch off of that main trunk of the theme of the program. So dining hall programs, staff-run fire bowls, lots of songs being sung throughout the camp are all part of those things. So are the opening and closing fire bowl and the evening programs. I can win a lot of positive evaluations just by the caliber of the evening programs. I think in our camp, that makes our camp unique to any of the other Michigan camps is our Order of the Arrow program. And I would challenge those of you who are airmen and those of you who are going to be leading that area, the Toccasin Longhouse, and being part of the ceremonies team, that you start thinking now and start preparing now on how we can make these literally the very best ceremonies we can make them. Back in the day when we were running 8 weeks of Gerber for Boy Scouts and camping 2,700 Boy Scouts on the Boy Scout side, we were literally focused on making the Order of the Arrow the heartbeat of camp. Ryan can tell you from his time as the lodge chief of the importance that we made into camp. That's where the Toccasin came from, is because of the importance we made in the camp. That Wednesday night Order of the Arrow ceremony, literally moms and dads would come from literally out of state just to witness the theatrics and the grandeur of that Order of the Arrow call-out ceremony. And of course, the program that followed it, the ordeal ceremonies and the brotherhood ceremonies, were always just above par. They always scored in the high 90s in leader evaluations, and the kids really, the scouts, really got to where they appreciated it. And quite honestly, that great Order of the Arrow program caused us to gain more and more camp staff year to year to year to year. And I have to tell you, of the Boy Scout camps in America, 90+% do not do Order of the Arrow camp programs in camp. So that alone separates Gerber from any of these other camps, particularly if we put it back high on our docket, back as the heartbeat of our camp. And that is requirement from Ryan to the camp directors right on down, the energy that you put into it and you have the expectations you have for it. I insist that there always be a program within a program area. You already heard me tell you about my boring picnic table bench pressing thing that we did when I was a handicraft director. I've always insisted that there be a program area within a program so that the kids, the scouts, are never dull, never bored, never sent back to their campsite. Let me repeat that last line again. Never sent back to their campsite. If a young man's come there for a merit badge, he's never told, well, go back to your campsite and study your book. Nothing upsets the boy or the scout leaders more than somebody being foolish enough to make that comment. Always have a program within a program area. Even on the, in fact, if you think about it, a Betty Ford camp staff, literally everything you do at Adventureland is program within program in every program area. There is hardly any advancement on the Cub Scout side because we're focused on program, and that's why your camp scores so well year after year after year. And it's exactly the same thing we need to be focused on the Boy Scout side. And we can start now. If you already know you're going to be an area director on the Boy Scout side, then start now thinking about what that program within a program is going to be. Doing new things each summer, I think, just goes without saying. Having fun, how we use the free time of the campers is important, et cetera, et cetera. Advancement opportunities go without saying on both sides of the camp. Tradition building. For me, the tradition is Gerber Scout Reservation on both the Cub Scout side and the Boy Scout side boil down to three things. A powerful camp staff, service-minded, servant leader camp staff, a strong Order of the Arrow foundation, a delivery of camp programs that are always creative, fun, and can't wait to do them again. Those are our traditions that we had in that camp. If I could point to one thing that got us from at Gerber from 1997 of camping under 1,000 scouts in 5 weeks of camp to over 2,700 Boy Scouts, just Boy Scouts, not Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, in 8 weeks of camp, it would be because of those things. Great camp staff, great Ordero programs, and the great innovative programs that we did throughout the area. The rest of these things that are under program areas are all things that are traditional things. The gate campsite check-in that literally nobody else in the state used to do. I literally had to go kicking and screaming to get the rest of the camps, the Boy Scout camps and the Cub Scout camps to let people get out of the parking lot and get to their campsite as quickly as they can. You guys were already doing that and leading that. Doing a smart, sharp, either super den chief led or campsite guest host led tours and orientations. I think that staff leadership, you need to circle the daily visits. You'll see it explained better in the manual. But I don't ever expect to know or find the camp director or the reservation director locked into one place if possible. The only person I ever want to see in the camp office is the office manager and maybe the business manager. Everybody else is out there doing their thing. The program director, you need to be visiting every single program, every single day, to making sure that we're exceeding the expectations. Every camp is expected to do a welcome home party after the opening campfire. Every camp is expected to have, daily flight programs, run an on-time program. The training post really doesn't have anything to do with you folks, it has to do with Ryan. The in-cap compliance and state compliance, again, that has to do with Ryan and Ranger Chris and the people that are going to be making those kind of things. Themes I've already talked about. I'm not going to be redundant into that. In order there, and the Betty Ford side, you need to make the half-staff program, well, I guess on the Gerber side as well, you need to make the half-staff program a big deal and really get our airmen into it and doing something really quality. Now, as it relates to camp staff, the camp staff and the inventive program are all your ownership. Slide 5, when we start talking about food, gets into a little bit different. So now I'm on to the food slide. This is mostly for the camp directors and Ryan, but also those of you that may be working in the dining hall. It is important that we follow these things, that we make sure that we're prepared with these things. Now, having said that, I'm going to slide that to the side and say now to everybody else, CIT, camp staff, area directors, leaders in the camp. We are all responsible for fun. We are all responsible for the cleanliness of the camp. We are all focused on making sure that the camp, the dining hall, is the program area in which they eat at is fun and entertaining. We think that through because we have a plan, and we know what that plan is, we know what that theme is, and we're going to move it in that direction. It's a great time. I can remember back years ago when I was a young man on the camp staff, having a young man at camp. Literally, our camp would bring in, we were running 10-day camps when I was a young man, and they would literally bring in 4 or 5 outside firemen, as I called them, but they were people who from the outside of scouting were expertise in different things. And as Ryan could tell you, and others who know me very personally, know that I have a real passion and love of early American history, particularly things related to flintlocks and black powder and that kind of stuff. And I learned that because of a visiting fireman who came to our camp in 1969 when I was just 15 years old. And I thought, what a joy it was to learn about something I'd never done. I'd never touched a flintlock rifle before in my life, but I got so passionate about it. And the cool thing was the guy that was there was so smart, he gave us all a little round ball, a little round lead ball, which means nothing. Probably cost him a penny. Means nothing. But for me, it meant an entire hobby that has literally been with me my entire life, to the point that I have a museum here in my home that is dedicated to my hobby of this particular area. And now I own many flintlocks and many of those things because of that one lead ball, because a outside visitor who was invited by a camp director who was smart enough to think of how can I have a more creative, fun, exciting dining hall program. And you could all help for that. Remember, when we're in the dining hall, we lead by example, and we set the right example of when to eat and how to conduct ourselves in the dining hall. One of my pet peeves that I've always had with camp staff is that if the scout sign goes up, everybody on the camp staff puts their sign up, and everybody stops talking. And whoever's standing at that microphone doesn't say one word until it's quiet in the dining hall. And if you do that at the beginning of each week, they'll learn. The entire camp will learn. When the sign goes up, everybody goes quiet, and they proceed with the business. And the business will not proceed until it's that way. How many times have I watched somebody trying to talk on the microphone with their hand straight up in the air with a scout sign, and I'm thinking, why are you doing that? So these are all things we learn and do, and we practice, and we make each other better at. So quality food service provided when it meets the nutritional needs of our customers. Most of this is not on your watch or your responsibility, but how we do it sometimes is. The fun that we have in the dining hall, those certainly are. Okay, facilities. Again, not strongly on a camp staff for those of you that are listening on your watch. You can't control what's built or what's not built. You can't control those kind of things. But what you can control, what you can make a difference of, is how they're taken care of. If you borrow something from Ranger Chris, you make sure it gets put back correctly and where it belongs. You don't just keep it in your program area where somebody else can't get to it. You don't leave your program areas looking like a bombshell hit it. You don't leave your sleeping areas like a bombshell hit it. The number one way to get a staff ill with what I call the second session illness or the third session plague is people being unclean in their living areas. Constantly keep them clean, keep them neat, keep yourself clean and neat, and you'll find that you'll actually make it through the summer unill, as it were. One of the tidbits I'll pass on to the camp directors is that literally at every one of those morning flagpole things, my camp nurse would be there, or camp a health officer would be there, and would pass out vitamin gummy bears or those chewy gummy vitamins. And everybody thought that they didn't have to take it if they don't want to, but the guys and gals who did seldom got sick during the summer and always had what they needed to do. But it starts with the cleanliness and the order. Everything at Gerber Scout Reservation, on the Cub Scout side, on the Boy Scout side, on the Ranger stuff, and the dining hall, all of it is your and my responsibility. There are a lot of men and women, a lot of them that have given money and time and energy to keep our camp as neat and clean and organized as we possibly can. We have the finest dining hall in camp. We have the finest program areas in camp, in many of the camps in our area. We have a lot of things at Gerber to be very proud of, and we need to make sure that you and I as camp staff are not letting anybody harm those by not taking care of those in a proper way. So when it comes to facilities, our ownership is we take ownership, and we treat it as if it belonged to us personally so that we would always take care of it and go from there. Last point I'll make on facilities, if I may, Ryan, and that is I think it's all our obligation to keep our eyes and ears open. If we're hearing that the camp showers are atrocious, say something to the right person. Say something to your camp director or to your area director. Say something. If the grounds and trails are starting to look like a walking trash piles, then say something and do something. That's all our obligation. You can't be one of the kind of camp staff who says that's somebody else's job, because it's not. It's always our job. Facilities are there to help us take the parking lot idea to a better level. Of course, I can run a great program in a parking lot with a quality, family-run, oriented staff. But if I have a dining hall, it's all the better. If I have a shooting sports area, it's all the better. If I have a lake, it's all the better. If I have an Over the Arrow program, it's all the better. If I have a great scoutcraft and forage area and handicraft and nature and etc., it's a better area, a better camp. Okay, leader engagement. Again, not one of the things that you'll be responsible for in a lot of ways. And so most of the things on this page are related to the camp directors and to Ryan. As I understand, the Camp 2020 Leaders Guide is already online and up and available. If you haven't read it, you should. If you haven't got a copy of it, I'm sure it'll be given to you by your, you'll be told where to get to it online by one of the camp directors or Ryan or someone in that role. But these leader engagements on camp that can be done through your connections as camp staff is important. When I was a young man on the camp staff, I made it my point of every adult that came to my program area got greeted personally by me. They got welcomed. They almost got like they were a visiting president or that kind of thing, where they got a tour around what I was doing, what we were looking at, and that they were always welcome to be a part of my program area. When I was a program director, I had the same attitude that no leader got by me without a handshake or a hello, ask how they're doing. I think that's terribly important that a camp staff be seen as a caring group that not only cares about the camper, but about the men and women who brought those campers to our camp. Because quite honestly, there wouldn't be a Gerber, and there wouldn't be a Boy Scouts of America, and there wouldn't be Eagle Scouts, and there wouldn't be anything if it weren't for these men and women who raised their hand and served as scout leaders. So you got to remember that many of these people took their own personal vacation time and gave up a lot to bring their scouts to our camp. So let's treat them with the dignity and respect that they deserve. And whenever one of them gets in a place where it's a negative situation, as I used to tell my staff from when I was a camper on, your answer is always, "You're probably right, sir or ma'am, let's go talk to my camp director." And it's the job of the camp director to handle the negative things in camp, never your responsibility. Don't be defensive, don't be entertaining. Your job is to be supportive and helpful and find the resource that can solve the problem that you cannot solve. Okay, that covers the things that I want to talk about on this. I'll pause for a moment, Ryan, and see if there are questions or particular things, and if not, I'll move into what I want to talk about on the leader evaluation form.
Okay, if you have a question, just type in the chat box you have a question, and we will address you. Go ahead, Soda Pop.
So, I know I asked this last time, but so what is my job description? I'm an area director. Is there any way you could email me or like one-on-one chat?
Spencer hasn't gotten you anything? I'll get with Spencer and I'll get it over to you. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Daniel.
Okay, so that packet that we got at our interview, when do we turn those papers in?
Okay, so let's hold off on some of those kinds of questions until the end.
Okay.
You guys have questions for Mr. Solgrove about any of the context that he had shared? Let's ask those questions now, and then I'll answer any of those following questions later on. Okay?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
All right.
I guess I would make, if I can, one of the questions, Ryan, if I could, what's the job description of an area director? Go back to what I just talked about under program and leadership, and you'll find that that's a lot of it. I don't care what area you have. I literally don't. I don't care if you're an area director, handicraft, waterfront, shooting sports, cope, color group leader, or a Kayla is a Florida Kayla, or Babe the Blue Ox, or I don't care. It doesn't matter. It all boils back to what's the theme of your area, what's the expectations you have of the team that's working for you, and how you're going to deliver what you're going to deliver in your program. Those are the most important things that you do. The rest of it, I'm responsible for Scoutcraft, or I'm responsible for Crockett's Cove, or the tree houses, or the environmental science area, nature area, it doesn't matter, because the common ingredients to all those is, as a director, I'm giving leadership to a staff to accomplish a mission. And yes, I'd like to know what the mission is from the standpoint of what area I'm serving, but once I'm serving it, all the rest are common denominators, common dominoes, common foundation stones to every single area in camp, and that's the leadership that we have to give. Okay, I'm going to ask that you go to in the building leadership guide, go back to the appendix, and you're looking for a page that I don't believe it's numbered. No, it's not, but it's in the appendix, and the appendix is at the back of the book, starting on page 28. If you want to scroll down, and it's it appears to be the 4th page in, and it begins with the words, "Thank you for bringing your scouts to our camp." And I want to walk you through this adult leaders evaluation, and I have a particular reason to do that, because a lot of how we're measured on our success is this adult leaders evaluation. I say this because when the state asked me to get back involved with the camping operation, things were at kind of a low ebb. Of the 8 camps that were being operated in the summer of 2017, no camp, none, 0, none of the 8 scored at what I would call a B-level average evaluation, which means their average camp score was in the 80s. None of them. In fact, the average score in 2017 was in the C range. And we actually put out a booklet bragging about it at that level, which amazed me, but that's neither here nor there. But my point was that we were happy delivering a C-level program. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't go to restaurants that deliver at the C level. I sure as heck don't want to be in an airplane that delivers at the C level. I don't want to pay my money and go to a movie that's at C level. I don't want to do anything in my life that's C level. If it can't be an A+ or better, I'm not sure I want to be a part of it. If it can't be great, I don't think I want to be a part of it. So that means that for us, as part of our mission statement, we've got to score in that 90 to 95 plus category. We've got to get ourselves in the A range, which are in the 90s. Now, I've got to tell you that in 2019, Gerber, for the first time in 5 years, on the Boy Scout side, made it to literally 89-point-something%. First time in 4+ years. Now, the Cub Scout side, Betty Ford Adventureland staff side, you hit 91% for like multiple years. So you've done pretty good in getting back up into that higher range. Each of us can do better. None in 2017. 2 camps made it in 2018 into 90+%. And last summer, 4 of the 8 camps made it into 90+ categories. This year, my goal is to help all of the camps that are operating in our state reach the 90+% level. All of them have the same exact evaluation that do these same core things that are exactly like the ones I just shared with you in the previous executive summary. They're the exact same domino factors that are inside your building leadership camp, building legendary camp service manual. I know because I wrote these. And so I want to focus on these for just a second about what you particularly can do. So I'm looking at core 1, clear and constant communications. Everybody should be there, hopefully, and ready to go. Pre-camp, you don't have anything to do about, you'd say, oh, that's not me, that's Ryan, that's camp directors. And I would say, no, it's not. Pre-camp communications is all of us. You as a CIT or as a member of the camp staff or as an area director all of us have ways of contacting other scouts through our social media. Start talking about Gerber. Start talking about what we're doing, what's exciting, what's happening. Start being that cheerleader that we talked about earlier. Now, online resources and guide leaders, those are the responsibilities of the team management, of the leadership team of the camp. In camp communications is everybody's responsibility, and we've, I think, talked enough about that at this point. Dedicated and trained camp staff, core number 2. Here are the things they're actually going to measure and evaluate. The ease of the check-in. Was the camp staff welcoming? Were they literally standing at the front gate, ready for us to get there, excited? The program area is ready to go, everything looking exciting. One summer in 1983 at this camp that I told you about in Denver that went from 400 to 3,000, I was telling the camp staff that we really had to do something, we really just had to do something different to show that we were going to be customer service minded. And one of the area directors came up with this idea that everybody in camp would be in the front parking lot, and we'd all have a white towel over our left arms and hold them out like we were the butlers waiting for the guys to get into camp. Oh my God, what a riot it caused. It was so, the leaders couldn't stop laughing when they got out of their cars, and it set the tone for the week. I'm here to serve. It was an amazing thing, again, because we had pre-thought it out and prepared for the check-in service. So it goes all the way literally back to how they were welcomed, how they were checked in, what was the spirit and energy of the staff, what was the service of the staff, were they willing to help, were they out there doing it, how prepared were the area directors. Again, I've already told you, the kid goes to take a merit badge, and for some reason you're grumpy about it, you're this, you're that, and you send them back to their campsite, you just scored a low score for the camp. You just embarrassed our camp staff for no positive reason, for the wrong absolute reasons. Instead, find a way to engage and keep people in that, hence the program within the program. Area directors, start thinking, don't care where you're at, a program within a program. And yes, even Cope and Climbing and Waterfront can have programs within programs. I've seen it. I know it works. It does great things. Next time we deal with the Rangers. That's not your part. And last is the camp key leadership. That's the camp director, program director, et cetera. Okay, core 3 relates to strong scouting programs and activities. I've already talked about this enough, but you can see what we're particularly measuring and looking on. How strong is that opening campfire party? Do the young people truly feel welcome? Do the leaders feel truly welcome? Do they feel like, you know what, I'm glad I paid $300 to be here for a week and live out in the woods with the mosquitoes and the bugs and the dust and the rain or whatever else coming, because this is going to be a blast. That's what it's going to be. Marriage badge program areas, evening programs, dining hall programs. You see all those, and I'm not going to be redundant. I've already talked about programming and the caliber and the nature and the themeness of that, the preparedness in advance of that, et cetera. Ryan and camp directors, I think you ought to, program directors, I think you ought to start thinking at beginning your summer camp week themes, session themes, beginning in your March meeting. Begin bringing buzz groups together of smart thinking camp staff who begin saying, hey, what if we tried this, or what if we tried that, or what would happen if we did this? And maybe it's bringing up some of the old themes from the past. And Ryan, maybe it's a good idea to bring some of our alumni back from the decade previous to this group that might have some ideas from that time period. But we can start now on that programming and that planning. Next one is quality, safe, and purposeful facilities. Again, you don't have a lot to do with these, but there are some that you do, such as the overall cleanliness of the camp, the ability of how the look of the program and merit badge areas are. You have the chance to walk in and look and make sure that the camp restrooms and showers are adequate, and if not, say something to somebody. We all have a responsibility, but particularly the campsite hosts, as it relates to the camp nest. If we put the tents up sloppy and they look sloppy because we just wanted to get the damn job done and move on to the next thing and didn't really care about how we did it, then when the person moves in after driving however long they drove, for whatever they did, through whatever circumstances it took to get there, their first impression is they're going to come into a camp and go, Well, this site looks sad and lonely and terrible, but sharp standing tents, blown out areas that are clean and sharp, restrooms that are ready to go and neat and clean, they all make a difference and people respond to those first impressions. First impressions do make a point in this. Last core value, again, all of these 5 core relate back to the same things I've already talked about. Food service and how we do that. Again, you don't have responsibilities for most of these, but you do in the staff attention to needs and details, including the fun and adventure of that.
Hey, Mike,
and then
guys,
it's actually a national question used on most restaurants, most hotels, most entities that are in the service business use this, and it talks about how likely are you to recommend. I got to tell you, Gerber went from a less than 25% recommend to somebody else to last summer over 80% recommend. That was almost a 60% increase in 1 year, and I blame that greatness on last year's camp staff. I really do. They just did a great job in a lot of areas. Food service, for instance, evaluations went from a C to a B plus last summer. Literally almost more like a D plus to a B plus last summer. Over a 20% increase in many categories of food service. Program areas in several areas went up by double digits in their leader evaluations because of last summer's camp staff. So I can't applaud last summer's camp staff enough and what they delivered and how they delivered it. We can do even better this summer. We got to come in with a mindset. I want to be 100%. I want to score 10s on everything. I want us to be great in all that we say and do and how we do it. And I want to bring people in with it and have a team around me that has the same attitude and direction. And camp leaders, program directors, camp director, reservation director, your job is to think it, breathe it, say it, act it, be an example of it constantly. We have a very short window, June and July, to make the real difference. 2 months to really make a difference in our council and in the children we serve. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about the evaluation, other than I'm looking forward to reading scores from this summer that score in the 90 pluses. If you go back up to page 24 in the booklet, its title leads Leaders Must Lead. And if you're there, I want to come down to what I call the outcomes, because now I want to, the opening part, the first 3 paragraphs are me rattling on about something that relates to the overall thought. But let me focus you in on some things I want to particularly talk about. For those of us who have grown up in scouting, and I don't care if it's your scout executive, Aaron Gatch, or it's your reservation director, Ryan Kreese, or it's your camp director, or your camp ranger, Chris Tower, or your camp directors, so many of your adults and older camp staff, and many of you have grown up in that camp. You know what that camp has done for you. You know what the Boy Scouts of America as a program has done for you. You know, those of you who have been on camp staff before, you know that when I say it makes a difference in people's lives, because you've seen it make a difference in people's lives. It may have even made a difference in your life. It certainly did mine. My summers on camp staff, my time as a young man, as a camper in camp, all shaped me into the career and the life and the direction that I chose to go, as it did so many other people that I know. So the outcomes of us being great this summer are what you read here. We will keep more scouts in scouting, and that's a good thing. We will keep more volunteers engaged. And nothing turns a volunteer off than to think they spent $200-something to go to camp, or their kids spent, and they had a lousy time in camp because the camp staff didn't have a caring, loving attitude about how they did things. I can't begin to tell you the number of guys who become Eagle Scouts simply because of what happened on the camp staff, either because they're on the camp staff or they're not. And now knowing that sometime in 2020, in the fall of 2020, we will have our first young ladies earn the Eagle Scout Award, which I can't wait to go to the Eagle Court of Honor for that. I'm excited about now that the Eagle Scout Award will be that you will be opening the door to Eagle Scouts down the road next year, the year after, and the year after because of what you do. And on the Cub Scout side, let me tell you something, Betty Ford Camp staff. If you do your job right, if you really make it the kind of summer that makes these kids can't wait to come back, you will put more kids in the scouting than any of us will, because you'll keep them from Weeblos and Cub Scouting into Boy Scouting and on into that scouting trail. Again, I can't begin to count the number of young men I've met or been speaking at the Eagle Court of Honor where they haven't said, it started for me and my troop, but it really happened at camp, as a camper or as a member of the camp staff. No doubt about you strengthen the morale of our council and what happens. And lastly, you keep the mission promise about things. I've been saying to the people in the state, and I'll say this to you, I think I may have alluded to it last year in one of my in-camp talks to you. I believe that our camp staffs across the nation, if they follow this booklet and the things are outlined in this manual, will understand that you and I are the ones that are going to save the Boy Scouts of America. What we deliver at camp can last all year long. What we deliver in making sure our camps are great can last all year long. We've got to really have the attitude of, I want to be a part of, I want to be a camp staff member of, I want to be integral to the part of building a legendary camp. I want to be on that kind of camp staff and be a part of that. Page 25, and this will be the wrap up of my talk tonight. A little message that I picked up from Ron Conlow, who's a nationwide, but probably now worldwide professional who teaches Fortune 500 companies how to empower their employees, their management, their leadership teams to do great things. And he actually wrote a document, literally, this is his quote, about camps, and because he's an Eagle Scout and because he went to scouting and he grew up in scouting, so he wrote this. Legendary camp service occurs when our council and our camps, through its trained, inspired, motivated, and fully staffed volunteer employee teams, that's you, serves our customers so well that the customers receive a powerful, positive, and emotional reaction that propels them to repeat their experience. Remember that last question on evaluation? Would you recommend this to somebody else? If the answer is always you bet, then we've achieved this. This requires a healthy investment by the council and the key camp leadership in time, money, training, coaching, communication, and recognition. And all of those, time, money, training, coaching, communicating, and recognitions, is what's on our thing. Legendary camps exceed customer expectations, do things differently than other scout camps, consistently wow their customers, and create raving fans who become our chief promoters. Remember what I said about saving the Boy Scouts of America? And now to my favorite camping poem of all. Who has smelt the wood smoke at twilight? This used to be on all the old wood badge certificates. I don't know if it still is, but perhaps it still is. But I love the last line, and you've got to remember this was written in back in the ages ago, 100 years ago. So it's going to be very gender neutral or gender related to men. Who has smelt the wood smoke at twilight? Who has heard the birch bark burning? Who is quick to read the noises of the night? Let him follow with the others for the young men's feet. And I'll call it the young people's hearts and minds are turning to the camps of proved desire and known delight. You, men and women, you young people, as members of our camp staff, are exactly the ones that are going to show to them that Gerber Scout Reservation and Betty Ford Adventureland is a camp of proved desire and known delight. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I look forward to the opportunity of meeting you personally at camp. I hope that we'll have the best summer we've ever had. In fact, I hope we have a legendary summer. Thanks, Ryan, for this opportunity.
Thanks, Mike. I've got a couple people that have questions. JT, you have a question?
I do. Thank you very much. I'm on a call right now, so I'm going to try to make this a little brief. So, first off, who would be who is directly running the aquatics area along with the Med Lodge? Just kind of like thinking outside right now.
Okay, so we're still looking for an aquatics director, and we're working on getting volunteer med staff from physicians within the community.
Gotcha.
So,
I understood that was kind of like the ideal plan. I wasn't sure if that was like still happening or what was going on with that, so figured I'd just check and make sure. So my second question for you, Ryan, is you know that I'm not going to be there for staff week, correct?
Yes.
All right. So is there any way that I might be able to jet up there a few days early or a day early or something like that just to get, or kind of like help out and get, shoot.
JT, why don't you connect with Mary, okay? Why don't you connect
You got
with
it.
Mary and give her a call and work that all out.
You got it.
All right, awesome.
All right. Thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome. Fedora, you had a quick question.
Yes, I do. What's going to be our cool camp shirt color this year? Do you know?
For the staff?
Yeah.
I'm thinking. I think we're might go with a light blue.
Ooh, I like that. It's water. I like aquatics. Good fit. Thank you, Ryan.
Let me just chime in. That is a fantastic color.
All right. Kazoo wants hot pink.
Dude, hot pink, yes. Let's do it.
I mean, yeah, we could do that, but at the same time, blue is just like fantastic overall. So
Very.
Hot pink is an old school joke.
Okay.
No go for me on the hot pink.
All right, guys. Hey, does anybody have any other questions for Mr. Soulgrove before we move on? Then, thank you, sir. Thank you for all your help and support that you give us behind the scenes. Each and every one of you staff members, if you ever get a chance, you know, when Mike's in camp, he is a wealth of knowledge. You know, get to know him, learn what some of those stories that he carries under his gray beard are, because they're all ones that will help you as a staff member in your future in scouting and in life. So thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question real quick.
Go ahead.
So there was on one of the earlier slides, Mr. Soulgrove, there was something mentioned about a 5-10 rule or 5-10 ratio. I was curious as to what that was or what that meant.
I think that's really, I assume, Ryan, right? It's related back to the evaluation forms.
It was on the program slide, I believe.
Yeah, and it's about scoring tens.
Oh.
You don't want to score the 5. I assume that's what it's about, Ryan, isn't it?
I believe so. Yeah, you want to instead of shooting for 5s, you want to shoot for 10s.
So what it basically meant is that for me, I can score the evaluations back to a report card or a grade card. A 10 is anything between a 9 and 10 is an A. So anything in that last 10% is a 10. Anything between 80 and 89 is in the 8s then is a B. Anything that's in the 7s is a C. Anything that is a D, and we don't want to score 5s, right? And so we don't want to be there. And anything less than a 5, I don't even know why we're in business. So we don't, you know. So our attitude is, in fact, I should probably change that where we only write down scoring 9s and 10s, you know, and how to do that. But the point of it is, it's related back to taking the evaluation form and relating it to a report card, because most of us, because of our school training and our college training, we understand exactly what an A is and a B is and a C is and a D is and what an F is, right?
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm going to move on here. Thank you, sir. Keith, if you wanted to share some thoughts or some topics about the in-person training.
So Mike mentioned the in-person training, so I think it's kind of on our minds. We've got dates were in your packets, so you should have those already. March 27th through 29th is our first one, and then May 1 through 3 is coming up after that. Please plan to be in attendance at both of those. If you're not able to, you need to contact us, let us know, so we can make sure you get the training you need. One of the main focuses of our first one will be brainstorming and developing ideas, coming up with games and program area ideas. Yep, there's some bullet points there you all can read, I hope. Yep. We'll get out a list of things to bring with you if you need a packing list, but toiletries, clothing, bedding, basics will be prepared to be outdoors at least some of the time, no matter what the weather. So if it's going to be cold, bring something warm.
Awesome. Thanks, Keith. Now, I just want to let everybody know, everybody's been doing a great job of getting their contracts signed and returned. If you have not, please work on getting that done soon. I was hoping to get all those uploaded into the online WorkBright paperwork system. Unfortunately, I'm waiting on a couple things before we can move forward with the WorkBright. So I apologize that that didn't happen as quick as everyone has hoped. But you guys have actually really surprised me on how fast you were turning around your contracts. So hats off to each and every one of you for doing that so quick. That's never been that way before. And so pretty soon here, we're gonna make that live. You will get an email. That email will have you create an account. And when you start create the account, you'll have all the ability to submit all of the paperwork that we gave you at the in-person staff meeting or in-person interview. Okay. The other
question, Ryan.
Go ahead.
The contract, do we send it into the office in Grand Rapids, or what do we do with that?
If you have ability to scan it and email it to me, that would be preferred.
Okay.
But you can. I've had a couple people that have mailed it into the council office. That's fine too.
Okay, I'll get on that.
All right, great. Thank you, Dan.
Yep.
All right, now just coming up, our next webinar is going to be right prior to our in-person staff training. It's going to be March 22nd. The guest speaker for that evening is Sue Hastings Bishop. I don't know if you guys are aware, but there's an organization called American Camping Association. Sue was the president of that American Camping Association and has been a professor in outdoor recreation at the college level her entire career. She has had extensive experience with some of the Girl Scout stuff she's had daughters before, so she wasn't able to get involved with Boy Scouts, but wonderful woman, great knowledge and experience in the outdoor education aspects. Following her in April will be our Scout executive, Mr. Aaron Gatch. She's going to talk to us about customer service and alignment and some Disney examples. And then in May, Dave Harmony. So Dave actually charges people usually to speak. His job is to go around and influence CEOs of large companies, help them learn how to do their job better, how to be a better leader, and how to reorganize their staff to the lean method. So he's a really neat guy. I'm really looking forward to his conversations and talks. So please make sure you're on that as well. And then we'll have our second in-person training May 1st. So if you have a question that doesn't pertain to, if you have a question that pertains to everybody, please put something in the chat box so I can call on you. Otherwise, if it's specific and to you or your contract or your job, what I'm going to ask you do is you email Mary Stack if you're on the Scouts BSA side and ask that question. Remember, if you always have a question, the first person you go to is your superior or your camp director. Okay? So, if you have a question for everyone that relates to everybody, anybody have one?
Yeah, that's me. I got a comment to make, if that's all right with you.
Hold on, Glowstick. Use the chat box, okay? Garrett put a thing in the chat box already. So
I did.
Okay, go ahead, Glowstick.
Okay, so me and some other guys on the ceremonies team for OA have decided that instead of just waiting for week 1 to roll around and then just cherry pick a couple of people for ceremonies, that we are going to start recruiting at the first in-person staff training. So if you are interested, if you're a member of the Order of the Arrow and you are interested in working on ceremonies, which I highly recommend because it is quite a bit of fun, we will be holding auditions of sorts at the first in.
Glowstick, you kind of cut out. We heard sign-ups happening at the first in-person training.
I can finish his thought for him. So we'll be doing auditions at first staff training. There will be a sign-up sheet right around check-in, and then sometime during the Saturday we'll be going into doing auditions.
Awesome. Hey, Glowstick and Kazoo, can you guys make sure to connect with the program directors, Keith Oliver and Spencer Snope, to make sure that they know what you guys are trying to do?
All right.
Okay, awesome. All right, Garrett, you had a question.
Yep, Jarrett here. What did we want to think about, Keith, for the first in-person training that you assigned us to at the first webinar?
Yep. So the things to think about are ideas for games, ideas for skits, ideas for dining hall program, ideas for the program within a program area. Anything that you think you can bring to camp to make it awesome, because we want a whole bunch of ideas that we can put out there, share, pick the very best ones, and make our camp program awesome.
Okay.
So the first in-person training is going to be all focused on program development. Okay.
Okay. And then my question was, are we supposed to mail in the contracts like through paper, or is it okay if we do it through email?
You can do it through email. That's fine. Just email them to me.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Awesome. Sorry, I'm trying to follow this. Yes, Glowstick, I think we got the message communicated. Thank you so much. Any other questions that we have? I don't really see anybody else. Sammy.
Yes, I was wondering about the CIT contracts. When will those be emailed out?
CIT contracts will be mailed out as soon as we have our outline for the CIT program and plan. And we, Keith and Mary and I met on that just last Friday. So some of that is in progress and moving forward, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Ben Barber.
I was wondering, because I noticed this with all the webinars, but I wasn't sure about the in-person trainings. About what time would those be at? Because I know they start on Friday, and I was a little curious because I generally don't get out of school till like 2:30 in the afternoon.
Yep. So typically the in-person trainings, folks will arrive somewhere between 7 and 8, but all that information will be shared with you guys in an email really soon.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Eli and John.
Hi, I had a question about the packing list, if we're going to have one for both the in-person trainings and the actual season itself.
Yep, we will supply that as soon as we have the details on the in-person training out to you guys in an email here soon.
Okay, thank you.
And at the in-person training, probably the second in-person training, we'll have a little more detail on the, here's kind of what you bring for the summer, okay? Good. Ben. Ben, you're muted.
Now, now that I think about it, I have a follow-up question. For the in-person trainings, would we have, would we stay there for the weekend, or would we show up, go home, and then come back the next day?
No, we'd stay there for the whole weekend.
Okay.
Okay. Mason has a question.
So I had a question about uniforms. Do uniforms change depending on what area you work in?
So we'll talk about all the uniforms during one of the in-person trainings, but it's all about there's different. You're going to need to be in a different uniform at different parts of the day, okay? And we'll cover that at one of the in-person trainings. I don't want to take up the time now to kind of explain that, but everybody will require a field uniform, which is the tan shirt and khaki pants, scout socks, and not khaki pants, the green pants. Full uniform. But Mason, we'll cover that one of the in-person trainings. Thanks. That's a great question, though.
Okay, yeah.
Gabe. Oh, Gabe didn't have a question. All right. So we're going to move on. Our next session, again, is March 22nd. Same call-in ID and number. We will make sure to get an email out ahead of time. Again, please remember to try and do your best to drive people to turn in applications at the website for interest in positions that we have open. And thank everybody for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everybody, and may the Schwartz be with you.
I'm sure I'll keep you guys just one.
What he said.
All right, good night, boys. Have a fantastic night, and best of luck with whatever the week brings.
Good night, everyone.
That's the one you would. That's it. And we out.